Don't take me back, don't take. It's so hard to hide, but so easy to find. I love the lost.
So you may have heard the absolutely catastrophic news that MatPat, the owner and runner of Game Theory, is looking at retiring. Now, I'm sure you've all seen the video titled Goodbye Internet, and this comes after a huge wave of many YouTubers quitting. I mean, for example, you had Tom Scott, the funny man that Reddit absolutely adores, that does all these kinds of videos exploring parts of the UK, looking at various technologies, pronouns. He basically said that he can't keep up the schedule if he wants his videos to be better, so he's taking, a bit of a break. And now MatPat has came out and basically said, he's throwing in the towel. You've had a lot of other YouTubers that didn't get as much attention as well. For example, one YouTuber called Moo, and he basically said, he needs to leave, and he was basically crying during the recording, getting very emotional.
I'm stepping away from doing YouTube as a full-time job, and I'm sure you're probably wondering why, and pretty much the answer is just Nogla. All right, bye.
Now, what I think has actually happened in this situation is Tom Scott has basically started this avalanche, this wave of a lot of YouTubers realizing, you know what? I actually have a lot of money. I can live quite comfortably now. I don't need to appease the algorithm, because keep in mind, the majority of these people that are taking breaks or like quitting YouTube or stepping down, they're all pushing 40. Now, I'm not the one to be ageist here. I'm 26. So in YouTube terms, I'm basically a 95-year-old man. I think a lot of these YouTubers have realized that they are sitting very comfortably, some of them having tens of millions. And then they realize, wait, like, why am I uploading? Am I doing it to get a 1 out of 10 on the YouTube studio? And MatPat in his video where he says that he's stepping down, he makes a very good point, because a lot of YouTubers, they just kind of up and quit, hopefully at their peak, they make a big event about it like he's done, or they just keep uploading until they don't enjoy what they do anymore and they lose relevancy. I think it's very safe to say that one of the saddest things you can see is a YouTuber that used to get loads and loads of views, and then they're still uploading in current year, and they're pulling in like 1 to 2% of the views that they got at their peak. It's just sad. There are a lot of YouTubers that have been up and quitting, but I think with MatPat, that has really affected people the most, because he was, as much as people love to meme on him and rib on him, he was a cornerstone of YouTube. He was incredibly connected. He would do collabs with huge YouTubers, like for example, Markiplier. He had his own, YouTube Red series. His most viewed video was actually a project he did called Game Lab with YouTube, where he was basically trying to recreate Mirror's Edge parkour in real life.
Let's go! 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 Let's go!
And as well, as many of you know, MatPat had a very flamboyant character, a very dramatized character, and that is because, before YouTube, he was doing theater.
You think that when I meet my maker, hello, maker?
Now, what a lot of people don't know is his first promo, or basically first ever Game Theory, was 12 years ago. And it was like, looking back on it now, it is like classic old YouTube. You can hear the compressed microphone, the slideshow of images that most of them he probably just yoinked straight off of Google.
We have created Game Theory,
Oh!
gaming's tangential learning experience.
There it is.
Pop the weekly video
There
into
it
your
is.
web browser.
Oh my God. Even though he was probably my age here, he edits like such a boomer. What a lot of people don't remember as well is a lot of the early game theories he did, YouTube probably wouldn't allow them today. For example, this one here, which is basically Boob Theory, which was Game Theory, best boobs in gaming.
Those awful tan lines. Anyway, hello internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the show that teaches you important life lessons.
How is he not? His voice is exactly the same. He just hasn't changed. I mean, honestly, have you seen pictures of MatPat when he first started Game Theory and what he looks like now? He has not aged a day. I want to know this man's skincare routine. Okay, I know we're doing a video like reminiscing on MatPat, but I gotta see a bit more of this.
Zelda and Samus actually be the doings of Dr. Mario? By the end of this faptastic episode, you'll have become a real...
Oh my God, when was this uploaded? 2009? 2012. Oh my God, that's like when Far Cry 3 came out. Look at that. You've got the Batman meme, the actual FAP 9 gag meme, Captain Picard. He said FAP as well. It was a different time, man. It was a different time. But of course, what everyone knows MatPat for, what he really blew up on was the game theories around Five Nights at Freddy's, because obviously it was a huge thing at the time. Loads of kids grew up on it. A lot of people to this day still obsess over it. It's definitely past its golden era. But I mean, you can see the catalog here, how many videos he made. There are probably dozens. 67 videos! 32 million, 26 million, 18 million. It's insane. He did so many theories. And the best thing is, a lot of it was just straw grabbing. I actually remember a lot of game theories that MatPat did, where he actually got quite a lot of backlash for. I think one of them was Undertale, where he like misinterpreted part of the story. But the thing is, what MatPat would do was purposely dive into video games that had a very like abstract lore. It was up to interpretation. So obviously his interpretation and his writing team's interpretation was going to be different to, I don't know what little Michael, who's like 10 years old, is going to think. And obviously not to mention as well how successful game theory was. It sprouted off so many memes. I mean, for example, the iconic phrase, "But that's just a theory, a game theory." You know, that was mocked and reused absolutely everywhere. Something that MatPat in the video is completely aware about. Now, there's been a lot of game theory memes that I could talk about. Like, for example, the time where MatPat and his team did various videos on Hello Neighbor. That was an incredibly popular game. Probably a bit too popular of a game looking back on it. The game itself, the gameplay loop, it actually wasn't really that good. But because of the abstract lore, it drove him to analyze it and break it down to the point that he basically became a lifeline for Hello Neighbor. Now, usually what happens is there's a lot of trending games and then YouTubers will leech onto it. For example, my most recent video, Lethal Company, that is me being a wriggly little worm. I'm leeching onto a game. I'm not giving that game any more popularity. I'm leeching from it. But with MatPat, it was the complete opposite situation. He basically got Hello Neighbor, he talked about it, and he actually made the game so popular that the developers were then, you know, atting him on Twitter, hoping that he would cover another theory so they can get more views, more sales. I believe MatPat is going to enjoy this. I think MatPat will enjoy discussing this frame by frame. Yes, MatPat should totally reply to our DM. So it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that you can actually build up a company so much that when you actually move on to other things, they're without a lifeline. But obviously as well, not to mention, MatPat has split off into multiple other channels. He started off with game theory, and then he had film theory, which was kind of dissecting films, usually in the frame of like, if there's a spooky horror monster, how do you beat it? Which is by no means an original concept, but still he added a lot to those videos. He had food theory as well, style theory, so basically 4 different demographics. And finally, every single achievement, which was, you know, emulating the Xbox 360 achievements, you know, the 4 parts of the controller, they were all lit up, which pleases my autism greatly. Now, in the video itself, MatPat is obviously 37 right now. He's pushing 40, and he originally started game theory when he was 18 years old. And you've got to keep in mind now, like, MatPat has a wife, Stephanie. He's got a child as well. Like, the background away from YouTube is getting incredibly busy for him. Now, I did mention Tom Scott earlier, but he does also go on to show a lot of other YouTubers that basically up and quit around the same time, like, for example, Meat Canyon. But, you know, in Meat Canyon's example, that is probably the softest quitting out of everyone. He's basically taking an extended break. Meanwhile, MatPat is officially stepping down, and all of the co-hosts for all of the other channels are basically stepping in to fill his role. This isn't an uncommon thing with, like, these huge conglomerate channels. Like, for example, the channel Dead Meat, when the host had to go away, you know, for a wedding, he basically had one of his friends take over as a host. But again, that was only for a temporary thing. With MatPat, it is permanent. Now, some of you might remember that sometime last year, MatPat did actually already sell game theory behind the scenes. I mean, it wasn't hidden, but he wasn't really public about it. It just came up in like a few news articles. Well, that company that he sold to sounds like an off-brand of some Elon Musk company. It's called Luna X. And the reason why he sold that company is because he's been planning to leave for quite a while, but now, because he sold it to a much bigger company for money, it's become much more self-sufficient, so the company can still exist without him, you know, having to be present. That's usually what happens with a lot of these big channels. They do end up selling their rights or, you know, branching off. And I think he made the right decision because he's taking the steps to ensure the brand still lives on. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the video, it is really sad when you see a lot of channels that you used to watch kind of just fall off and pull in like a modicum of views. Epic Mealtime comes to mind. I just checked on their channel now, and like, I don't want to kick someone when they're down, but for most of their videos, they're not even pulling like 10,000 views anymore. And on top of that as well, MatPat, you know, stepping down, not being the host anymore. He is not the first channel to do this. You might remember years and years ago, you had Ray William Johnson doing his Equals 3 show. He stepped down and basically had various people fill in the roles to varying success. I remember the first guy that he had, people really, really liked him. There was actually a good reception. And then they got rid of that guy and replaced him with other people. And the reception there wasn't that great. And the show eventually fizzled out. Now, I'm very sure that MatPat is going to take the appropriate steps to make sure that that doesn't happen. Will there be a dip in viewership? Probably. I mean, a lot of people might just see that MatPat isn't there anymore and move on. But I'm 100% sure that they've already prepared for that ahead of time. He says at one point in the video that he really does love his job. And I'm sure he does. But he also goes on to say that it's led to a lot of late nights, and every conversation he has with friends and family, it really is just about work. Now, I'm more than 10 years younger than MatPat. The wall hasn't came for me yet. I mean, to be fair, the wall is probably going to come for me way before it comes for him because he's still looking as youthful as ever. But I can totally empathize with this because you might not see it, but YouTubers have a lot going on behind the scenes. You know, I've got a main channel to run. I'm trying to pump out more game reviews on there. I've recently hired someone to help me with like script writing, editing as well. I'm picking up more editors, but it's also trying to keep the flow of like making sure that the content stays yours, because taking on more people is great. You can expand and, you know, put out more content, but you don't want to sacrifice the quality for quantity. And also on top of that as well, you don't want to fall into like one of these channels that basically it's just automated. You're like fed a script that you read once a week. It just becomes soulless then. Now, one highlight I do have to mention in this video, he's very candid. He's very open. He talks about his experiences with his child, his wife, how YouTube eats up so much time that he feels like he can't really live his life in his late 30s, early 40s. But despite all of that, the most important part of the video is the fact that he self-admits to be a Skibidi Toilet fan.
I think I'm like the only 37-year-old out there who has an unironic appreciation of Skibidi Toilet. Then again, maybe that's the problem, right? Like, maybe that's not a good thing.
Now, MatPat does go into greater detail about who's basically going to be running Game Theory after he's gone. Well, not just Game Theory, but the entire network or the other channels. He mentions that Lee is going to be the host of Film Theory, who was originally the third editor for Game Theory that MatPat picked up originally. Amy is now going to be running Style Theory. She was always working behind the scenes on that channel, but now she'll basically be the face of it. You've got someone called Santi that's now going to be running Food Theory. And then Tom is now actually running Game Theory, someone that, you know, grew up watching Game Theory with MatPat. More on Santi, by the way. Apparently there was someone that used to actually work on Good Mythical Morning, the podcast with Rhett and Link, before eventually coming over to Game Theory. Now, even though he is stepping down as the host, this is by no means the end, because there is still, I think, 9 or 10 more episodes of Game Theory to come out that he's going to be narrating and going to be the face of. He's basically going to take like a back role. He might help with some of the scripting, but he's already said that he's still working on like various ARG series, Petscop reference. And then on top of that as well, I think he's doing his own like fashion week based off Fashion Theory. It's just crazy how someone that was one of the cornerstones of YouTube is now basically, you know, retiring in kind of a semi way. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not going to sit here and cry and get emotional and be like, I'm going to miss him so much. I tuned in to watch every single Game Theory notification gang, notification squad. You know, I never really, I'll be honest, I have never sat through the entirety of a single Game Theory video, but I knew of his existence. I'd click on some of the videos and then realize that I wasn't the target demographic and clicked off them. But you still need to appreciate how much time and effort this man, Matt, has put into this. He has built an empire, an entire empire, which is insane. He has built a career so big that he can actually step back and still generate income. He can still generate a fan base, an audience. I actually watched a video of his, which is actually one of the last videos he put out before putting out this retirement video. And he's talking about how YouTube is switching over to short form content, you know, like Instagram Reels or TikToks, and how it's now harder to foster a fan base. MatPat has one of the biggest, most loyal fan bases on YouTube because he started off so early. He's put so much effort in with his videos, but now with short form content, it is so much harder to do that. He actually mentioned, which is a really good point, he used examples of other influencers, and I think they had like a VidCon panel that was sponsored by TikTok, and despite a lot of these influencers having hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, no one turned up because short form content now does not want you to have a fan base. It just wants you to keep scrolling. I know this sounds like a rambling that came out of nowhere, but the point I'm trying to make is MatPat is going to be one of the last few YouTubers with an incredibly strong core fan base that is actually retiring, because I feel like now you're going to have this kind of flash wave of people that blow up overnight and then they kind of vanish and you never know what happened to them. But MatPat, he has stayed consistent. Sure, he's had some cringy moments, you know, like I just simultaneously whipped a nade. But I mean, who cares? The guy seems incredibly charming. You know, I've never met him in person. I wish I did. I feel like I've just lost a living legend like Elvis now. But MatPat, I do wish you the best. It's insane how much you brought to the YouTube community. I mean, I'm not going to say rest in peace. He's not dead. It feels like he's dying. damn, I'm not sure how to feel. I feel like I've got to have an emotion now.
A god born amongst men and said to live as a human, red plus blue. And in Pomni,